The air on Zarathi Prime carried the metallic scent of charged particles, a constant reminder that this world was not meant for human lungs. Cade Brennan adjusted his environmental suit's filters and pressed forward across the crystalline desert, each step taking him deeper into forbidden territory. The warning beacons had been blaring for the past kilometer, their shrill tones echoing across the endless expanse of purple sands. He knew what he was risking. The ceasefire between humans and Zarathi had held for 3 months, but only barely. Any violation of their borders could reignite the conflict that had already claimed thousands of lives across 12 star systems. Yet Cade had no choice. The truth he carried was too important to deliver through official channels, too dangerous for anyone to know except those it would save. The first sacred monolith rose before him like a finger pointing accusingly at the sky. Its surface rippled with energy patterns that seemed to shift when observed directly. Ancient Zarathi symbols carved into its base pulsed with a soft blue light, warning all trespassers of their fate. Cade had barely reached the monolith's shadow when the attack came. A blur of motion materialized from nowhere, a figure wreathed in adaptive camouflage that flickered and died as it struck. Cade found himself on his back, the point of a vibro blade pressed against his throat. Red eyes blazed behind a tactical visor as an armored form straddled him, every movement precise and lethal. Human, the voice was female, carrying the peculiar harmonic quality of Zarathi vocal cords. You have 30 seconds to explain why I shouldn't end you where you lie. Cade raised his hands slowly, palms empty. He'd expected this, trained for this moment. I come bearing no weapons, he said carefully in standard Galactic. I seek. In our tongue, she snapped, pressing the blade closer. Speak truly or not at all. Cade's throat worked against the cold metal. His Zarathi was passable but accented. I seek audience with your people. I bring information about the war. The warrior tilted her head, studying him. Even through her armor's bulk, he could sense her athletic grace, the coiled power ready to strike. Information, and you think this gives you the right to defile our sacred ground? The information I carry could end this war, Cade insisted. Save both our peoples. She laughed, a sound like breaking crystal. Bold words from a trespasser. I am Vexara of the Keshmora clan, third blade of the inner circle. By law and honor, your life is forfeit. She raised the weapon, energy crackling along its edge. Turn back, human. This is your final warning. The logical choice was obvious. Surrender, retreat, try to find another way. But Cade had come too far, risked too much. His sister's dying words echoed in his mind. Tell them about Salvara. Tell them the truth. Instead of backing away, Cade looked directly into Vexara's burning eyes and did something that defied all reasoning. He took a step forward, the blade now pressed firmly against his throat. I will not turn back, he said softly in her language. Not until I've delivered what your sister died to protect. Vexara's entire body went rigid. The blade trembled almost imperceptibly. You speak lies no human could know of. Salvara of the Keshmora, Cade continued, his voice steady despite the blade's proximity. She who walked between stars to forge understanding. She taught me these words on earth in her dying breath. He drew a slow breath and spoke in the ancient ceremonial dialect. Keshalar Mesthara, blood calls to blood across the void. The blade clattered to the stone ground as Vexara stared at him, her red eyes wide with shock. In all their planning, all their training, no human diplomat had ever spoken the blood greeting of her clan. No human should even know it existed. Who are you? She whispered, her hand moving instinctively toward the fallen weapon but stopping short. What game is this? Cade slowly reached into his belt pouch, moving deliberately to show he meant no threat. From it, he withdrew a small crystal pendant, a star sapphire carved in the shape of a Zarathi clan symbol. Its surface caught the alien sunlight and threw prismatic patterns across both their faces. She asked me to return this to her sister, he said quietly, to the fierce warrior who taught her to fight, who stood vigil at the Keshmora shrine for 7 cycles waiting for her return. He extended his hand, the pendant resting on his palm. She spoke of you often, Vexara, your strength, your loyalty, your fire. Vexara's hand shook as she reached for the pendant. The moment her fingers closed around it, all pretense of the hardened warrior vanished. She slumped back, no longer straddling him but sitting in the sand, her armor's servos whining softly as she moved. Salvara, she breathed, her voice breaking. My heart sister, we thought she had betrayed us, joined the humans willingly when she disappeared. She looked at Cade with new eyes, not as an enemy, but as someone who had known her most important person. You were with her when she died. Cade sat up slowly, careful not to make sudden movements. I held her hand. She spoke of you, of home, of things she needed you to know. He gestured toward the inner territories. She gave me coordinates, told me how to find the sacred paths. She said only you would understand the truth she discovered. Vexara's fingers traced the familiar grooves of her sister's pendant, memories flooding back like a tidal wave. The last time she'd seen this star sapphire was the night Salvara vanished during a diplomatic mission, a mission that had gone fatally wrong and triggered the current war. Tell me, she commanded, though her voice had lost its edge. Tell me everything. Cade reached into his suit again, this time producing a small data crystal. She recorded messages for you. I've carried them across 6 star systems to get here. He hesitated. But she warned me, there are those among your people who would kill to keep this information buried. Vexara's eyes narrowed, warrior instincts reasserting themselves. You expect me to trust you, to potentially betray my own kind for the word of a human. Before Cade could respond, his communicator chirped urgently. He glanced at it and paled. We have incoming, 3 Zarathi interceptors bearing directly for this position. Vexara sprang to her feet, her armor's sensors confirming the approach. The border guard, someone detected your crossing faster than expected. She grabbed his arm, hauling him up. If they find you here, execution will be the kindest option. They'll torture you for military intelligence first. Then I die with your sister's truth, Cade said solemnly. So be it. The simple resignation in his voice stopped Vexara cold. She'd seen soldiers face death before, but rarely with such peaceful acceptance, and never for someone else's cause. In that moment, she made a decision that would either save both their peoples or condemn her as a traitor. No, she said firmly, run. She activated her armor's comm system, speaking rapidly in tactical Zarathi. Border Command, this is Vexara Keshmora. I have captured a human spy near the first monolith, requesting permission to interrogate before executing. I'm taking him to the Ghost Caverns for privacy. A pause, then a gruff voice responded. Permission granted, third blade, make it painful. Vexara grabbed Cade's hand and sprinted toward a hidden ravine, her armor's camouflage field extending to envelop them both. As they ran, she whispered, the Ghost Caverns connect to the underground waterways. We can reach the inner cities unseen, but only if we're not caught first. They dove into the ravine just as the first interceptor screamed overhead, its scanners sweeping the area. In the narrow canyon, pressed against the ancient stone, Vexara found herself acutely aware of Cade's proximity. Despite the danger, despite everything, she noticed the determined set of his jaw, the way his eyes held hers without fear. Why are you doing this? She asked softly. Risking everything for information. My sister was just one human among billions. Cade pulled out a small holographic projector, activating Salvara's image. The projection flickered to life, Salvara in her final hours, weak but determined. Her voice carried despite the interference. Sister of my heart, if you're hearing this, then the human who bears it can be trusted. I learned terrible things on Earth. Not all humans want war, and not all Zarathi are innocent. There's a shadow organization spans both our species. They've been orchestrating conflict for profit, selling weapons to both sides. I have proof. Cade helped me compile it, protected me when they sent assassins. Trust him as you trust me. The message continued, revealing details of a conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of both governments. As Salvara's image spoke of secret meetings, manipulated intelligence, and deliberate sabotage of peace talks, Vexara felt her worldview shattering. When the message ended, she stood in stunned silence. Above them, the interceptors were conducting widening search patterns. They needed to move, but first she needed to know one thing. She really tried to stop this war. Cade nodded. She died for it, took a poisoned blade meant for the human ambassador. With her last breath, she gave me your location, told me only you could help complete her mission. Vexara made her decision. Then we run, together. She turned to look at him fully, this human who had risked everything for a promise to a dying Zarathi. But know this, if you're lying, if this is some elaborate deception, I will make your death last for cycles. A ghost of a smile crossed Cade's face. I wouldn't expect anything less from Salvara's sister. They emerged from the ravine into a larger cavern, ancient Zarathi glyphs glowing faintly on the walls. Vexara led them through a maze of passages, their path lit only by the bioluminescent fungi that had adapted to Zarathi Prime's unique radiation. As they navigated the underground labyrinth, their earlier antagonism gave way to grudging respect. "Your accent," Vexara observed during a rest stop. "It's not just standard galactic overlay, you've actually studied our language." "Salvara was a patient teacher," Cade replied, though she despaired of my pronunciation of the click consonants. Despite herself, Vexara found herself almost smiling. She always was particular about proper speech. Even as a child, she'd correct our elders if they used the wrong tonal emphasis. Hours passed as they traveled deeper into the cave system, their conversation gradually shifting from cautious to almost companionable. Vexara learned that Cade was a xenolinguist who had been working with a secret peace organization. Cade discovered that Vexara had questioned the war's origins long before her sister's disappearance. "There," Vexara pointed toward a distant glow. "The underground harbor. From there we can catch a submersible to the capital city of Zefter. But," she hesitated, "once we surface there, I become as much a fugitive as you. My people will consider me a traitor for helping a human." Cade stopped walking and turned to face her fully. In the dim light, his expression was serious but kind. "I can continue alone. You've already risked more than I had any right to ask." Vexara studied him for a long moment. What she saw wasn't just determination or duty, there was genuine compassion in his eyes, a depth of understanding that transcended species barriers. The way he spoke of her sister with such reverence and grief. "No," she said quietly, "Salvara died for this truth. I won't abandon it now." She placed her hand on his shoulder, a gesture of solidarity in Zarathi culture. "We see this through together." As they approached the harbor, Vexara felt something shift between them, a connection that went beyond shared purpose. When Cade accidentally brushed against her hand while negotiating a narrow passage, neither of them pulled away immediately. In the charged air of the caves, under the soft bioluminescent glow, something unexpected was beginning to bloom between the warrior and the diplomat. But time was running short. Above ground, the war machine continued its deadly dance, and 2 moons were rising over Zefter, a significant alignment in Zarathi culture. Whatever they were going to do, they needed to act before the council convened for the martial ceremonies at dawn. The submersible emerged from the underground harbor just as Zarathi Prime's twin moons reached their apex. The capital city of Zefter sprawled before them like a living organism, its bioadaptive architecture poolsing with the planet's natural energy currents. Spires that resembled coral formations twisted skyward, connected by bridges that flowed like fossilized rivers of light. "I haven't seen the capital since before the war," Vexara murmured, her voice carrying a note of longing. "It used to be more beautiful." Cade noticed the defensive emplacements that now dotted the skyline, the military vessels hovering in formation above the central spires. War changes everything it touches. They moved through the docking station with careful precision. Vexara had modified her armor's identification codes, allowing them to pass as a patrol unit returning from the border. Cade wore a captured Zarathi environmental suit, its bulk and face shield disguising his human features. "The council chambers are in the Heart Spire," Vexara explained as they navigated the city's transport tubes. "But security will be—" She trailed off, her armor's proximity sensors detecting something. "Get behind me, now." 3 figures emerged from a side passage, members of the Shadow Guard, the council's elite intelligence force. Their armor was sleeker than Vexara's, designed for stealth and infiltration. "Vexara Keshmora," the lead figure's voice was electronically distorted. "You're not on any approved mission rosters, and your companion's energy signature doesn't match any known Zarathi profiles." Vexara's hand moved subtly toward her weapon, but Cade stepped forward instead. "Because I'm not Zarathi," he said, removing his helmet. The Shadow Guards reacted instantly, weapons raised, but Vexara moved between them with fluid grace. "Wait, he carries information about Salvara's death, information that could end this war." "Salvara the betrayer," the lead guard spat. "She chose her side when she fled to the humans." "That's just it," Cade interjected, producing Salvara's data crystal. "She never betrayed anyone. She uncovered a conspiracy that spans both our species, people in power on both sides who have been prolonging this war for profit." The shadow guards exchanged glances. Vexara could sense their uncertainty. She'd known the lead guard since childhood, Torvak, her cousin, who had trained alongside Salvara. Tor, she said, removing her own helmet. I know how this looks, but I've seen the evidence. Our governments have been manipulated. The attack on the Rim colonies that started this war, it wasn't ordered by the human military. It was a false flag operation. Torvak lowered his weapon slightly. These are serious accusations. Which is why we need to present them to the full council, Cade urged, before more lives are lost on both sides. After a tense moment, Torvak nodded. The council convenes in 2 hours for the dawn ceremonies. They'll hear your evidence then. But you, he pointed at Cade, remain under our supervision until then. As they were escorted through the city, Vexara noticed how Cade took in every detail, not with the calculating eye of a spy, but with genuine wonder. Your architecture is remarkable, he said softly. It's like the city breathes. It does in a way, she replied. Our bioneural networks link the entire infrastructure. The city responds to our collective emotional state. She paused, then added more quietly, which is why it's been so unsettled since the war began. In the holding area adjacent to the council chambers, they were left alone for a few minutes. The room was sparse but elegant, with walls that subtly shifted colors based on ambient temperature and mood. Are you sure about this? Vexara asked. Once we present this evidence, there's no going back for either of us. Cade moved closer, his expression serious. Salvara made me promise, but even if she hadn't, he reached out, hesitating just before touching her face. What started as duty has become something more. These past hours with you, seeing your world through your eyes, listening to you speak of your sister with such love. I can't imagine a future where our people continue killing each other. Vexara caught his hand, her fingers intertwining with his. The touch sent a shock through her system. Zorathi were touch telepaths, and the brief contact revealed layers of Cade's emotions. His grief for Salvara, his determination to honor her sacrifice, but beneath it all, a growing affection for Vexara herself. Your emotions, she whispered. I can sense them. The connection you felt with Salvara, it wasn't romantic, was it? Cade shook his head. She was like a sister to me, but you, he stepped closer, you're something entirely different. The tension between them was palpable. Vexara found herself drawn to him in ways that defied logic. He was human, the supposed enemy. Yet his dedication to peace, his courage in the face of certain death, his genuine connection to her lost sister, it all combined to create something she hadn't expected. The council will want to know why I helped you, she said softly. What do I tell them? Tell them the truth, Cade replied. That sometimes peace requires trust, that sometimes understanding comes from the most unexpected places. The door chimed, indicating their time was up. But before they could separate, Vexara made a decision. She closed the distance between them, standing on her toes to press her lips to his. The kiss was brief but intense. Zorathi lips were slightly cooler than human ones, and the sensation was electric, literally, as small bioelectric currents passed between them, a side effect of Zorathi physiology. When they separated, both were slightly stunned. For luck, Vexara whispered, though they both knew it was more than that. The door opened and Torvak gestured them forward. The council awaits. As they walked through the corridors toward the grand chamber, Vexara felt the weight of her people's expectations and the pull of new possibilities. Whatever happened next would change everything, for better or worse. The council chamber opened before them, filled with the most powerful Zorathi in the system. At its center, holographic displays showed the current war status, human fleet positions, casualty reports, strategic projections. Soon, those displays would show something far more troubling, the truth about who had been pulling the strings all along. The Grand Council Chamber of Zefter was an architectural marvel even by Zorathi standards. The circular room seemed to extend infinitely upward, its walls made of a crystalline material that captured and refracted light from the twin moons overhead. 12 seats, each representing one of the major clans, surrounded a central dais where evidence would be presented. Vexara had been in this chamber only once before, during her ascension ceremony as Third Blade. Now, facing the council with a human ally, she felt the full weight of tradition and expectation pressing down on her. Council of the Unified Clans, Torvak announced in formal Zorathi. I present to you Vexara Keshmora, third blade of the Inner Circle, and the human diplomat Cade Brennan, bearing evidence regarding the death of Salvara Keshmora and the origins of the current conflict. The counselors immediately erupted in angry buzzing, their species equivalent of heated discussion. High Counselor Zephyra, matriarch of Vexara's own clan, raised her ceremonial staff to restore order. The presence of a human in these sacred chambers is unprecedented, she declared. Vexara, child of my blood sister, explain yourself. Vexara stepped forward, her warriors bearing commanding respect despite the controversial circumstances. Honored counselors, I bring evidence that our sister Salvara was murdered not as a traitor, but as a truth seeker. The war that has cost us countless lives was orchestrated by forces that profit from our mutual destruction. Counselor Thrakmer of the Mountain Clan sneered. Pretty words to justify collaboration with the enemy. Perhaps you, too, have been swayed by human manipulation. Before Vexara could respond, Cade stepped forward. Despite his smaller stature compared to the Zarathi, his presence filled the room. Honored Council, I request permission to present the evidence gathered by Salvara at the cost of her life. The data crystal was inserted into the central display, and Salvara's final comprehensive report unfolded before them. Bank transactions, recorded conversations, shipping manifests, and military communications painted a damning picture. A shadow organization called the Prophet Initiative had members in both human and Zarathi high command. They had manipulated intelligence, staged false attacks, and prolonged the conflict to sell weapons to both sides. The most shocking revelation came last. The attack on Rim Colony 7 that killed 10,000 Zarathi civilians was not ordered by Human Defense Command. The order came from General Vexara himself, a member of the Prophet Initiative, who then blamed it on humans to ensure war would be inevitable. The chamber fell silent. General Vexara, who had been present as a military advisor, slowly rose from his position. These are lies fabricated by human intelligence, he declared, but Vexara heard the wavering in his voice. Cade activated another file. These are your own communication logs, General. Salvara accessed them before she died. The display showed encrypted messages between the Xara and human conspirators, discussing payment schedules and strategic escalations designed to prolong the conflict. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. Torvak's hand went to his ear comm. The city is under attack, multiple unauthorized vessels approaching, configuration unknown. Chaos erupted as security protocols activated. Through the chamber's transparent walls, they could see sleek ships unlike any standard military design attacking both human and Zarathi defensive positions simultaneously. The Prophet Initiative, Vexara realized. They can't let this truth survive. Vexara took advantage of the confusion, drawing a concealed weapon. But Vexara had been watching him. She moved with lightning speed, her blade intercepting his shot meant for Cade. The energy blast reflected off her armor but left her off balance. Cade didn't hesitate. Despite having no armor or weapons, he launched himself at the general. Their struggle was brief but intense, ending when Torvak and other shadow guards restrained the Xara. The city's primary shields are down, another guard reported. Enemy forces are boarding the Heart Spire. High Counselor Zephyra stood, her age falling away to reveal the warrior she had once been. All able-bodied citizens to defensive positions. Torvak, get this evidence to our human counterparts. If we fall today, the truth must survive. Vexara grabbed Cade's arm. We need to get you to safety. No, he said firmly. We fight together. I didn't come this far to hide while others die for the truth. She looked at him, this human who had risked everything, who had kissed her with such tenderness, who now stood ready to fight for her people as fiercely as his own. Very well, but stay close to me. They made their way through the spire as battle raged around them. The Prophet Initiative's forces were well-equipped and ruthless, but they hadn't expected unified resistance from humans and Zarathi fighting side by side. In the central atrium, they encountered a squad of Initiative soldiers holding a group of civilian refugees. The lead soldier, his face hidden behind a featureless mask, spoke through a voice modulator. Surrender the evidence and we'll spare the civilians. Vexara and Cade exchanged glances. They had fought their way through 3 levels, covering each other's backs with an efficiency that surprised them both. Now, faced with this ultimatum, Their connection seemed to deepen into something unbreakable. "You have until I count to 3, the soldier continued. 1. Vexara's hand found Cade's. Their fingers intertwined as they prepared for what might be their final stand. 2. Cade squeezed her hand gently. "Together," he whispered. 3. What happened next would be remembered in both human and Zarathi military academies for generations. Vexara used her armor's emergency flashbang system while Cade, having observed Zarathi tactics throughout their escape, executed a perfect defensive formation. The initiative soldiers, momentarily blinded, found themselves facing not just two individuals but a perfectly coordinated unit. When the smoke cleared, the soldiers were subdued and the civilians were safe. But their eyes held no triumph. The sounds of battle from above indicated the fight was far from over. "The council chambers," Vexara gasped, her armor showing critical damage. "They'll try to destroy the evidence at its source." As they raced back up the spire, Cade caught sight of Vexara's determined profile and felt a surge of emotion that had nothing to do with the adrenaline of combat. Somewhere between running for their lives and fighting for a shared truth, he had fallen completely for this fierce Zarathi warrior. They burst into the council chamber to find it under siege. The air was thick with smoke and the crackle of energy weapons, but through it all, they could see the council still fighting to protect not just the evidence, but what it represented, the hope for peace between their peoples. The council chamber had become a war zone, but it was unlike any battle either species had seen before. Zarathi and human security forces fought side by side against the Prophet Initiative's mercenaries, their coordinated tactics suggesting an instinctive understanding that transcended species barriers. Vexara and Cade found themselves at the epicenter of the conflict. The Initiative's commander, a towering figure in advanced combat armor, had cornered High Counselor Zephyra at the data access point. She was desperately trying to transmit the evidence to human space before the incoming forces could stop her. "That's far enough," the commander's voice boomed through his suit's speakers. "This ends here." Vexara stepped forward, her damaged armor still protecting her vital systems. "It ended the moment you started this war for profit, Commander Rithlock." She had recognized his distinctive fighting stance, a former Zarathi Special Forces operative who had disappeared 6 cycles ago. The commander's pause confirmed her identification. "Ah, the Keshmora whelp, your sister was just as stubborn. Look where it got her." Rage coursed through Vexara, but she felt Cade's hand on her shoulder, a calming presence that grounded her. Together they had fought through the spire, saved civilians, and uncovered a conspiracy. Together they would end this. "The difference is," Cade said, his voice carrying across the chamber, "she didn't have backup." As if choreographed, the remaining loyal guards, both human and Zarathi, formed a defensive perimeter around the council dais. The initiative forces found themselves surrounded, their extraction ships fleeing as combined fleet forces moved into position. Rithlock's laugh was bitter. "You think this changes anything? There will always be those who profit from war." "Perhaps," Vexara acknowledged, raising her blade, "but today will not be their day." The final confrontation was swift. Rithlock's advanced armor made him formidable, but Vexara and Cade had spent hours fighting together, learning each other's rhythms and instincts. When the commander focused his assault on one, the other would strike from an unexpected angle. Their partnership had evolved into something seamless, each anticipating the other's needs. The decisive moment came when Rithlock overcommitted to an attack on Cade. Vexara intercepted with a move Salvara had taught her years ago, a complex maneuver that used the opponent's momentum against them. The commander's armor cracked, and he crashed into the central dais, unconscious but alive. As silence fell over the chamber, Cade realized he was supporting most of Vexara's weight. Her armor systems were failing, and she was running on pure adrenaline. "Hey," he whispered, turning her face toward him. "Stay with me." Her red eyes focused on his face with effort. "The evidence, did we?" "It's broadcasting across 6 systems as we speak," High Counselor Zephyra announced. "Both governments are ceasing hostilities pending investigation." Relief washed over Vexara's features, and she sagged against Cade. Medical teams were rushing in, but in that moment, it was just the two of them in the vast chamber. "We did it," Cade murmured, supporting her as she swayed. "Salvara would be proud." "Would she be proud of this too?" Vexara whispered, her hand reaching up to touch Cade's face. Understanding passed between them. Cade leaned down, pressing his forehead against hers in a gesture that was both human intimacy and Zarathi acknowledgement of deep connection. I think she knew this would happen. Some of her later messages. She kept mentioning how alike you two were. The medical teams were closer now, but Vexara managed a smile. Will you visit me in the medical wing? There's so much we need to discuss, starting with why a human knows our mating customs. Cade blinked in surprise. Mating customs. Her laugh was weak but genuine. That thing you just did, with the foreheads in my culture, that's significant. As the medical team finally reached them, Cade kept hold of her hand. Then we'll have a lot to talk about. 3 months later, the Treaty of the Twin Moons was signed on Zarathi Prime in the reconstructed council chamber. Representatives from both species worked side by side, drafting agreements not just for peace, but for active cooperation and cultural exchange. Vexara, fully recovered and now wearing the ceremonial armor of a newly appointed ambassador, stood beside Cade on the observation platform. Below them, delegations mixed freely, species boundaries blurring as individuals found common ground. Did you ever imagine it would be like this? Cade asked, his hand finding hers as naturally as breathing. No, Vexara admitted, then smiled. I imagined I'd execute you at the border. And I imagined I'd die a quick warrior's death. He turned to face her. Instead, I found something I never expected. Their kiss, witnessed by members of both species, marked a new era. Where once fear and suspicion had reigned, understanding and affection bloomed. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, centuries of mistrust couldn't be erased overnight. But watching Zarathi children play with human children in the plaza below, listening to the laughter that echoed off ancient stones, both knew that change had truly begun. That evening, in the quiet of Vexara's private quarters, they stood on the balcony watching the twin moons rise. The same moons that had illuminated their first desperate flight through the caves now bathed them in gentle light. Salvara's journal mentioned something, Vexara said softly. The last entry just before she died, she wrote that sometimes the universe sends us what we need, not what we expect. Cade pulled her closer, marveling at how natural it felt to hold this powerful warrior who had become his partner in every sense. What did you need? She looked up at him, her red eyes reflecting the moonlight. Purpose beyond war, proof that two hearts can bridge any gap. She paused, a smile playing at her lips. And apparently a human who's too stubborn to die when told to. Their laughter joined the sound of celebration from the city below, where former enemies now worked together to build something better than either had imagined possible. And in the space between the stars, in the quiet understanding between two hearts that had found each other across impossible odds, hope took root and grew. The war had ended not with conquest or surrender, but with understanding. And in the growing connection between a Zarathi warrior and a human diplomat, both species saw the promise of a future where love could indeed triumph over fear, where trust could bridge any divide, and where the greatest victories came not from battle, but from the courage to take one more step forward into the unknown.